Get every lighters out already, got you a non-stop fire roll.
Got another brother, we rebuilding we. OG right there. Go subscribe to his channel.
Great-grandson in the building.
We rebuilding to last forever, reaching for the future. No matter the weather, we strong. We focus, get into the bag. Moving smart with silence, never been the ones to brag. Haters see and hear the name, we rebuilding, we everlasting in the game. Stay far away from lanes. Praise the rules and Prince and Paul the name. We are not the same. Praise the rules and Prince and Paul the name. We are not the same. Are not the same. And we are not the same. Praise the rules and Prince and Paul the name. We are not the same. Na, 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 na. Are not the same. Are not the same. Are not the same. This is buzzing and we are not the same.
Well, what it do? Your great-grandson in the building of we building we. You know what it is. You step up in the building, you press the like button, but yo, listen right now. It is crazy right now, y'all. It is crazy right now. Trump and Israel has struck Iran, man. Has struck Iran. You know how ugly this is? Hey, yo, 50 Cent, T.I., fuck all the bullshit that's going on, the big distractions and all that. It's a wrap. President Trump confirms U.S. military has begun major combat operations in Iran, y'all. This is crazy. But we're going to get into it real quick.
A lot. You also have the threat of drones from Iran as well, and all of those ships, the carriers in the region, are vulnerable.
ABC's Martha Raddatz. We're seeing those images again. They're very limited images, but they say a lot with the recent strikes that have been going on between the U.S. and Israel in a joint operation. President Trump moments ago speaking from his Florida estate in Mar-a-Lago. We want to take you there. His words about the operation.
A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran. Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people. Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world. For 47 years, the Iranian regime has chanted death to America and waged an unending campaign of bloodshed and mass murder, targeting the United States, our troops, and the innocent people in many, many countries. Among the regime's very first acts was to back a violent takeover of the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, holding dozens of American hostages for 444 days. In 1983, Iran's proxies carried out the Marine barracks bombing in Beirut that killed 241 American military personnel. In 2000, they knew and were probably involved with the attack on the USS Cole. Many died. Iranian forces killed and maimed hundreds of American service members in Iraq. The regime's proxies have continued to launch countless attacks against American forces stationed in the Middle East in recent years, as well as U.S. naval and commercial vessels and international shipping lanes. It's been mass terror, and we're not going to put up with it any longer. From Lebanon to Yemen and Syria to Iraq, the regime has armed, trained, and funded terrorist militias that have soaked the earth with blood and guts. And it was Iran's proxy, Hamas, that launched the monstrous October 7th attacks on Israel, slaughtering more than 1,000 innocent people, including 46
Big
Americans,
distraction.
while
Big
taking
distraction,
12 of
y'all.
our
You see what it is?
citizens hostage.
Big
It
distraction.
was brutal.
Crazy.
Something like the world has never seen before. Iran is the world's #1 state
Big
sponsor
distraction,
of terror,
y'all.
and just recently killed tens of thousands of its own citizens on the street as they protested. It has always been the policy of the United States, in particular, my administration, that this terrorist regime can never have a nuclear weapon. I'll say it again. They can never have a nuclear weapon. That is why in Operation Midnight Hammer last June, we obliterated the regime's nuclear program at Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. After that attack, we warned them never to resume their malicious pursuit of nuclear weapons, and we sought repeatedly to make a deal. We tried. They wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. Again, they wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. They didn't know what was happening. They just wanted to practice evil. But Iran refused, just as it has for decades and decades. They've rejected every opportunity to renounce their nuclear ambitions, and we can't take it anymore.
Crazy.
Instead, they attempted to rebuild their nuclear program and to continue developing long-range missiles that can now threaten our very good friends and allies in Europe, our troops stationed overseas, and could soon reach the American homeland. Just imagine how emboldened this regime would be if they ever had and actually were armed with nuclear weapons as a means to deliver their message. For these reasons, the United States military is undertaking a massive and ongoing operation to prevent this very wicked, radical dictatorship from threatening America and our core national security interests. We are going to destroy their missiles and raise their missile industry to the ground. It will be totally, again, obliterated. We're going to annihilate their Navy. We're going to ensure that the region's terrorist proxies can no longer destabilize the region or the world and attack our forces and no longer use their IEDs or roadside bombs, as they are sometimes called, to so gravely wound and kill thousands and thousands of people, including many Americans. And we will ensure that Iran does not obtain a nuclear weapon. It's a very simple message. They will never have a nuclear weapon. This regime will soon learn that no one should challenge the strength and might of the United States Armed Forces. I built and rebuilt our military in my first administration, and there is no military on earth even close to its power, strength, or sophistication. My administration has taken every possible step to minimize the risk to U.S. personnel in the region. Even so, and I do not make this statement lightly, the Iranian regime seeks to kill. The lives of courageous American heroes may be lost, and we may have casualties. That often happens in war. But we're doing this not for now. We're doing this for the future, and it is a noble mission. We pray for every service member as they selflessly risk their lives to ensure that Americans and our children will never be threatened by a nuclear-armed Iran. We ask God to protect all of our heroes in harm's way, and we trust that, with his help, the men and women of the armed forces will prevail. We have the greatest in the world, and they will prevail. To the members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, the armed forces, and all of the police, I say tonight that you must lay down your weapons and have complete immunity.
This is a big distraction. This is a big distraction. We live right now. If you just stepped in the building, press the like button. So this was going on. President Trump confirms U.S. military with Israel has begun major combat operations in Iran. Hey, yo, they bombed Iran today, y'all. They dropped this information like, say, a half an hour ago. What happened right now, man? Forget all the bullshit going on. Fuck 50 Cent. Fuck T.I. Fuck all the dumb shit that's going on social media with the big distractions. This is a major distraction from the Epstein list, etc. But we're going to proceed, man.
Or, in the alternative, face certain death. So, lay down your arms. You will be treated fairly with total immunity, or you will face certain death. Finally, to the great, proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. Stay sheltered. Don't leave your home. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations. For many years, you have asked for America's help, but you never got it. No president was willing to do what I am willing to do tonight. Now you have a president who is giving you what you want. So let's see how you respond. America is backing you with overwhelming strength and devastating force. Now is the time to seize control of your destiny and to unleash the prosperous and glorious future that is close within your reach. This is the moment for action. Do not let it pass. May God bless the brave men and women of America's armed forces. May God bless the United States of America. May God bless you all. Thank you.
And you've been...
World War III is here. February 28th, 2026, y'all. World War III is here. Now, we're having all these discussions. Why not the citizens of the United States are able to bear arms? All 50 states should be able to bear arms. I'm keeping 100. All 50 states should be able to bear arms, felons, etc. The reason why I said that, man, it's about to be wild. This is a holy war that's going on, and y'all really don't understand what's going on. U.S. and Israel struck Iran, y'all. And y'all all know that Iran is not by themselves. Everybody's not talking about their allies. Always remember, man, anybody can get touched. Anybody can get touched. We're going to proceed.
Listening to President Trump from his Florida Mar-a-Lago estate, giving an address following the joint U.S.-Israeli strikes in Tehran, which started a few hours ago. It is quickly developing in that area. We've got Israel under a state of emergency. And we want to take you to Washington, D.C., along with Americans. Many of the lawmakers are also learning about this. We want to go to ABC's Selena Wang with some reaction. Selena.
Well, for weeks now, the American people, as they have heard the president repeatedly threaten military action against Iran, the American people have been waiting for a clear justification for what exactly the president's endgame would be. You just heard the president there lay out multiple justifications for this major combat operation. It's not just Iran's efforts to rebuild its nuclear program. It goes beyond its development of long-range missiles and support for proxy groups across the region. He also explicitly calls on the Iranian people to seize the opportunity for regime change with that stark warning. This is a president who has campaigned on ending wars. He's now acknowledging we may have casualties. That often happens in war. Now, you mentioned the congressional reaction. Well, the Constitution grants Congress alone the power to formally declare war. That is something that even some Republicans on Capitol Hill have tried to remind the president this week. We are starting to get some reaction from Capitol Hill. bill. We have heard, for instance, from Senator Ruben Gallego, a Democrat, who says that he lost friends to Iraq in an illegal, quote, illegal war he posts on social media. He says that young working class kids should not pay the ultimate price for regime change and a war that hasn't been explained or justified to the American people. We can support the democracy movement and the Iranian people without sending our troops to die. We're also getting reaction from Democrat from Florida, Representative Jared Moskowitz. He says he is formally requesting the State Department to fully brief Congress on a rapidly evolving situation in Iran, emphasizing this is a serious moment that demands full transparency and congressional oversight. Now, there were efforts this week to try and force a vote on the House floor for an Iran war powers resolution next week. That legislation would require the president to come to Congress to make the case for using military force against Iran. So this is certainly not over for Congress. They will make attempts to get explanations, and certainly not happy that they were not notified about this.
ABC's Selena Wang in Washington, D.C. with reaction. And we're also learning more about the region. In Qatar, Americans have been told to shelter in place, that there was an incoming missile coming there. Iran has gone on record with its state media saying that it has begun its retaliatory response to Israel. And here at home, we could also be on alert here as well. ABC's Josh Margolin joins us with some more information. Josh.
Hi, Michelle. Good morning. Yes, American law enforcement has been preparing for this for weeks. Obviously, we've all been watching the ramp up in the Middle East. We've heard the rhetoric. So as there's no actual threat right now against domestic facilities, but law enforcement, especially in population centers in New York and LA, where there are large Jewish communities, large Iranian communities, Israeli communities, they have been preparing, and we should expect to start seeing a visible uniform presence. That could be anything as little or as minimal as, say, marked police vehicles in front of synagogues during Shabbat morning services today, or something even, greater security precautions taken at schools with large student bodies of Iranian Americans or Iranian expatriates. And that is a normal kind of a thing. But there is always the concern that there could be, either random acts or impulsive acts of violence that stem from the news and the hostilities overseas.
Josh, we've heard from intelligence over the months and the years, especially since the Gaza situation with the war between Israel and Hamas, that there was always concern about heightened security and what was needed here, and those lone the people who might act solely alone or organized in areas around the world, including here in the U.S.
Absolutely. And in fact, the lone offender, the lone wolf phenomenon is the single greatest concern for American domestic law enforcement right now. In the years since 9/11, American law enforcement has been at various points at the highest levels of alert and not even really come down off of that type of footing. But just think about the logic is right there. It's easier to break up a plot of a number of people, but you don't know what's going on in one person's head.
ABC's Josh Margolin, thank you very much. We want to go back to ABC's Steve Ganyard. Steve, again, for people who are just joining us, getting caught up here, we're looking at those images a little bit earlier, those big plumes of smoke coming out of Tehran after the U.S. and Israel carried out those joint strikes in the past 2 hours. We've got Iran now signaling that they are going to respond and are responding, and alerts are also across Israel and also the region. We just also learned in Qatar that they had evidence of an incoming missile.
Yeah, both Qatar, and there seem to be plumes of smoke over Manama in Bahrain, just on the western side of the Persian Gulf as well. So this was anticipated, Michelle. Everyone knew that if Iran was attacked, that they would do retaliatory strikes, revenge strikes, and they know that most of those Gulf states were supportive of the U.S. in the past. While the U.S. didn't launch from those countries, This is just sort of a payback because for years they've allowed the U.S. to operate from their shore. So I think the other interesting thing here is that the Israelis have said quite clearly that these initial strikes were intended to surprise the leadership. As we were talking about earlier, this is the first time in recent memory where the U.S. or the Israelis have conducted a strike in daylight. Usually they do it in sort of the middle of the night, 2, 3 a.m. To catch people in their beds. But this was done on a Saturday morning in Tehran. You can see it's a bright, clear day in downtown Tehran, and so that's part of the element of surprise. And clearly the Israelis were looking to surprise the Iranian leadership. They surprised the rest of the world, as did the U.S., but the whole idea here is to take out as much of the Iranian leadership as they can. And now that the element of surprise is over, the U.S. and the Israelis will focus on knocking down those missile sites that are going to be used in retaliation.
ABC's Steve Ganyard, thank you. We want to actually go back to Martha Raddatz, too, who again has been in the region. What do you think the mood is throughout the region, talking with your military sources as well for Americans overseas?
There is great uncertainty and there is great fear about what happens next in terms of retaliation. First of all, there are 92 million people who live in Iran who President Trump has basically said he wants to rise up and go after the regime. Those people have to be living in fear too, with bombs raining down. And what's next? Certainly the sentiment I have seen on the streets, and we have all watched those protests, they want that regime gone. They want it gone, but that is a very, very difficult thing to do. President Trump has had great success with his military operations. Venezuela, it went exactly the way he wanted it to go. He grabbed the president, but this is not Venezuela. This is far more complicated and far more deadly, possibility of being deadly for Americans in the region. Iran can't reach the U.S. right now with any sort of missile, but they can reach our bases in the region. We have fortified those bases as much as possible, but there is still a great risk at this time. We heard the president go through that list of the horrors that Iran has rained down on U.S. forces, that they took hostages in 1979. But during my trips there over the last decade or so, there had been a warming of relationships. In July of 2015, we signed that nuclear agreement along with Britain, France, Russia, China, Germany to restrict Iran's nuclear program in return for sanctions relief. When Donald Trump was elected president, he withdrew from that agreement. And that's where we are today. We don't have an agreement. He wanted an agreement. He wanted them to stop everything, said they would not do that. I know that publicly Iran had said that they did not want to build a bomb, but that's a very different thing, just making a statement than signing something and coming into an agreement. So there is a great deal of uncertainty. There's a great deal of fear. And he has clearly chosen the path here that is the most massive strike. He said he wants to annihilate Iran's Navy. He wants to raise all of the missile sites. This is a very, very tall order, Michelle.
ABC's Martha Raddatz, thank you. We want to finish up with Steve Ganyard real quickly. A lot of military assets in the buildup over the past few weeks. Walk us through that very quickly and tell us what's next.
Yeah, Michelle, obviously dozens and dozens of tactical aircraft, F-35s, F-22s, U.S. Navy aircraft carrier has dozens and dozens of aircraft as well. But we're also going to see Israeli aircraft participating, but it is going to be an air war. It's going to be an air war coming from land bases, mostly in Israel, and from the two U.S. aircraft carriers that are in the region. So they have the ability to do sustained operations. So the president has said this will not be just one day, will not just be one set of strikes, that this will go on for days. It's just going to depend on which targets need to be resurfaced, which targets need to be re-hit over time as the U.S. looks at the initial strikes to see what kind of damage was done, waiting to see if the efforts to topple the regime, to take out regime leadership, will lead to some sort of an overthrow of the regime by the Iranian people.
Now, Steve, I look at this map that we're looking at right now, and I see it dotted with destroyers bombers and carriers and attack planes all the way around. Explain to us the position of all these military resources in the region and how they coordinate with one another.
Yeah, Michelle, you can see there that the Persian Gulf is sort of like a bathtub, and so most of the major combatants that the U.S. has are out of the Persian Gulf and they're in the Indian Ocean. So we have the USS Lincoln is well south of Tehran, or of Iran, the Iranian coast, several hundred miles off the Iranian coast, so well out of expected danger from short and medium range missiles that Iran may launch at it. So most of the U.S. naval power is outside of the Gulf. There are some smaller ships that are going to try to escape, but right now the Iranians have their heads down because both the Israelis and the U.S. are going after those missile sites. They're going to try to retaliate by the Iranians. So most of the things you see there are well outside, or at least in a safer place than they might be, not inside of the Persian Gulf, where they would be sort of much easier to target.
You know, the president said again tonight that they had obliterated nuclear sites. He rattled off 3 of them, of course, the Natanz as well as the Fordo also. And give us an idea of how much destruction that they had last June, and also what they're after in these initial hours of their bombing campaign, the U.S. and Israel.
Yeah, those strikes earlier on in Midnight Hammer, Michelle, were very, very pinpoint, and they used B-2 bombers and these hardened penetrators that are able to penetrate deep underground. So the damage that was done there was anticipated to be quite extensive. We don't have any way to look underground to see what was actually destroyed, but we have seen that the Iranians in the past few weeks have tried to pour cement over the top of some of those nuclear facilities to make sure that the U.S. can't hit them again. To do that, to go after those deeply buried targets, is going to take B-2s. It will take bombers over Tehran. We haven't seen those involved. That was part of this deception plan that the U.S. and the Israelis put together. They weren't going to put big bombers in the region to sort of give a heads up to the Iranians. It's sort of like, oh, we'll keep talking, the negotiations. We said Marco Rubio is going to go to the region here on Monday. So they tried to lull the Iranians into a sense of complacency that maintained the element of surprise.
And we learned that there were Tomahawk missiles, other missiles that were used in this initial strike. What sort of capability do we think Iran has at this point?
At this point, it's just going to be revenge shots. So, in the past, the Iranians have launched at not only the base or the countries in the region that have been supporting the U.S. Now we're seeing the what appears to be the Fifth Fleet headquarters in Manama, Bahrain, has been targeted. Perhaps in Qatar, the U.S. bases there in Qatar. So it's all revenge shots, and it's just trying to do something to disrupt the flow of U.S. aircraft and Israeli aircraft over Tehran. So they're going to be very limited. They're going to have to be a bit heads down because obviously there are airplanes airborne right now looking for missile sites, trying to preempt those missile attacks. And so this is going to be a real challenge for the Iranians to do something substantive while they don't know what their leadership, whether their leadership is still alive, they don't know what their leadership wants them to do. But at this point, what the Iranians are going to be able to do is mostly revenge. The unique part about this effort is this is the first time that the U.S. really in decades has gone after any of their naval assets. So the Iranian Navy, various ports have been hit along the Persian Gulf and along the Indian Ocean, Chabahar, Bandar Abbas. So the U.S. is going to go to great lengths to make sure that the Iranian Navy, the IRGC part of that, don't have the ability to interfere with shipping, particularly oil shipping, coming out of the Persian Gulf.
Steve Ganyard, thank you very much. Stay with us. We want to go back to Tel Aviv. That's where Ian Pannell has been hunkering down, and he's back out of that shelter, as we can see. But again, the alerts are still there. Ian, give us an idea about the mood there in Israel. There's a state of emergency that's been going on. Iran has, through its state media, says that its response has begun.
Yeah, that's right. As expected, the retaliation has begun. Iran actually launching 3 waves of strikes against Israel. We believe there have been intercepts over Jerusalem. As we were reporting earlier, we had the air raid sirens here, and so we, like most people in the city, were taking shelter. It's already been a very, very quiet morning. We were woken to the sound of an air raid siren, essentially warning people that a state of emergency had been declared, warning that preemptive action, in the words of the Israeli Defense Minister Katz, had been taken against Iran, and that everybody should expect a response in the form of drones and missiles from Iran. Now, in some senses, Israel has gone through this fairly recently, and citizens know what to do. But despite how good their air defences are, some of those missiles got through last time, and people lost their lives. So I think the fact that this seems to be a kind of open-ended conflict at the moment will be a great cause for concern for people. They've had a lot to deal with over a very long period. Whether schools go back is an open question. Whether people go back to work, all normal life for now will effectively be suspended here. And we're looking at some historic change in the Middle East underway right now. We've already seen substantial change ever since the attack here on October the 7th, 2023. We saw the war in Lebanon against Hezbollah significantly weakened. We've seen Bashar al-Assad, the leader of Syria, deposed. We've seen attacks in Yemen against the Houthi rebels. In many ways, Israel has dealt with a lot of its enemies, and the kind of face of the Middle East has been undergoing this rapid change. And this, in some senses, is the largest and the biggest part of that. Now, we can't say at the moment where this is going to end. The president set himself a very large list of objectives of what he's trying to achieve here, destroying the Navy, dealing with its missiles, encouraging the Iranian people to come out onto the streets. We'll have to wait and see whether any of those things can be achieved. Trying to get some of those things done just from the air will be incredibly difficult, but I think we are looking at historic times. This is the beginning of a significant change in the region, and at the moment with entirely unpredictable consequences.
And Ian Pano, we're going to come back to you in Tel Aviv as we can. We want to return to Martha Raddatz. Ian said that he's noting a major shift and a major change in the region. Do you agree with that?
I certainly do. And what happens next, and those proxy groups coming back and trying to attack the U.S., trying to attack Israel or U.S. bases, and you have to look at what the U.S. has in that region. Typically, there are about 30 to 40,000 U.S. military forces stationed in the Middle East. We have 35,000 now because we've been adding to that, and certainly those destroyers, those aircraft carriers, so it will probably more than 40,000. Those U.S. military bases, we have in Iraq 2,500 people, in Jordan 4,000, Qatar, which is the Al Udeid Air Base.
Yep, so that's what it is, yo. Off top, pause. We're dealing with a real situation right now. Let me turn this down real quick. We're dealing with a real situation right now, you know. Forget all the propaganda, forget all the distractions what's going on. This is a big distraction. You feel me? You know already, man, beats made by... What the beats made by? Let's go.
I'm a big hustler. I work hard for my money.
Okay.
I work very hard for my money. So you don't have the right to ask me where I get my money. So we need to create ideas together. We need to like exchange mindset, business mindset together. Not to you. Because if I tell you now I'm wasting my time, you just want to monitor my money. Have my money come and go. So don't stop me again.
Beats by Roadblock Cross, Double M.
Too much going on. Yeah, I can't because she keep asking me these questions.
Telling Detective Gaither that?
I don't remember what I done told the police.
Why would you snitch on your brother to lighten your sentence for what you did? Why would you let them use you like that? It is because you have no love for yourself, no love for your people.
Which right now they believe there might be a missile coming towards Qatar. Normally around 10,000. We have a base in Kuwait. We have a base in Bahrain, 3,200. This is where the Navy's 5th Fleet is. And in the United Arab Emirates, the Al Dhafra Air Base. So you have all of these people. They have been trying to protect them. They have added defensive measures over the past month or so, but there is still a great deal of concern. I have to think of the parents of the military tonight, the spouses, who had not really heard a warning like that from President Trump. Obviously, our forces are in danger even when they're doing exercises. It's dangerous to fly a fighter jet. It's dangerous to be on a ship. But to know that the President of the United States told them tonight, these military families, that there may be casualties because that's what happens in war, had to be the most sobering thing they have heard. And to know how long this will last and that there are troops in these bases taking cover. We know there were troops injured in 2020 when Iran retaliated for the death of Qasem Soleimani. Tonight, all things have changed in that region, certainly the politics of that region, but the fear in that region for the safety of our troops as well. And many, many questions remain about why now.
ABC's Martha Raddatz, thank you very much. And now we want to go to Qatar, where there has been a shelter-in-place order that has been issued, and that's where Marcus Moore is to give us an update. What's going on the ground there, Marcus?
Well, you know, as you know, it has already been a tense time for people across the region here, and we just a few moments ago, all of the cell phones went off with emergency alert messages telling people to stay away from military sites here in Qatar, and to stay inside their homes and not to go out unless they absolutely have to. This following the military operation that took place this morning, and now has resulted in swift reaction from neighboring countries. Obviously, as you know, so many people have been concerned about any type of military action in Iran, the impact that could have on the overall region, and the risk for there to be a wider conflict. And so certainly people here are very much on edge and watching very closely what may happen next. And just as Martha was pointing out, we talk about Qatar. It is home to the largest U.S. base in the Middle East. Thousands of U.S. service members are stationed there. And as you know, back in June of last year, during the 12-day war, Iran fired missiles at that base. Those missiles were intercepted, but certainly does give you a sense of how American assets in the region are potential targets in the days ahead as the situation unfolds.
Large base there. You had mentioned that, and Martha mentioned earlier that a lot of personnel have been relocated from those bases that would be targets in that area, but that doesn't mean they're entirely empty either.
Yeah, absolutely. They'll almost certainly have personnel still there. And it's also worth noting that the U.S. Embassy as well here in Qatar and in Bahrain, they told employees there to shelter in place until further notice. So you have a lot of Americans in the region here who are potentially in harm's way, and certainly officials trying to take steps to protect them as best they can. As you just noted, there have been some evacuations that have been reported, but there are still so many who are still here in the region who, again, are being told to stay in their homes and inside buildings in a safe place as this continues to unfold.
And Marcus, as we watch this unfold, again, you're looking at images from earlier for strikes that occurred in a joint operation between the U.S. and Israel on targets in Tehran, kicking off what the president has described as a widespread operation. He referred to it as war. He said Americans could lose their lives as they're fighting in this region, and giving a very sobering message at this time. And Marcus, you've been on the ground there in Qatar. Qatar has been known as an ally, especially as of late, for the U.S. What's been the mood there on the ground ahead of this military buildup as it was happening and ahead of these strikes?
Well, certainly people have been very concerned about what could happen and the potential for there to be more and wider violence and fighting in the region. Yes, Qatar has worked very closely with the United States. The United States sees Qatar as a partner in the region. But as you know, Qatar has also played a very key role as a mediator, obviously with vested interest with other countries in the region in trying to promote stability. And so to that end, that is why all of what we're seeing unfold this morning, why it is so concerning for people here in the region, is because they have tried to establish some stability. We know that early on the Qataris were quite instrumental in establishing or helping to establish the ceasefire between Iran and Israel and the United States just last summer. And so certainly there are back-channel communications going on as I speak to you now, and certainly they were all hoping to avoid this from escalating or spreading into a wider conflict.
ABC's Marcus Moore in Qatar. We want to go back to ABC's Martha Raddatz, the U.S. Embassy in Bahrain, warning of an imminent drone and missile attack. What do you know?
They have issued a security alert saying just that. There's an imminent drone missile attack in Bahrain. They are citing media reports, the embassy, of reported threats and drones over Bahrain. This is where the Navy's Fifth Fleet is. There are certainly ships there. There are American personnel there. Said the U.S. Embassy is urging citizens to shelter in place, review security plans. If you hear a loud explosion or if sirens are activated, immediately seek cover. Now, I should say that families there and the military there are not used to this kind of warning. They certainly are in Israel, where Ian is and where I've spent a lot of time as well. You know how to seek cover. You have bomb shelters. But the They are now warning Americans in certainly that area where the Navy base is to stay inside, go to the lowest level of a structure. If you're outdoors, immediately seek cover in a hardened structure. So you have people running for cover in Bahrain, at our Navy base, at other bases that we have in the region. This is a historic day for what is happening in the Middle East.
And it's a long day that's coming ahead, and we could be protracted for this operation for weeks. We're going to go back to Tel Aviv. That is where Ian Panel is at. And Ian, we understand that there are some incoming strikes coming in that the Israel's Iron Dome is intercepting.
Yeah, not just the Iron Dome. They've got a whole different layers and layers of different versions of aerial defense. You can't really see it now, but we were looking at traces in the sky. We just heard the sound of booms, which is the sound of those missiles being intercepted. It's just south of us. We can hear the siren elsewhere actually to the north of us. Where we are at the moment is okay, but I think this is just a sign of what's to come. You hear Martha and Marcus there talking about these alerts. This is exactly what Iran said it would do. We've had at least 3, maybe that was the 4th wave of strikes from Iran. Israel has a very sophisticated air defense system, some that are capable of even leaving the atmosphere and intercepting ballistic missiles before they re-enter the atmosphere and start to work towards their target. The last level in some senses is the Iron Dome, but certainly during the conflict last June, Iran also fired a large number of drones. In many senses, if you look at the war in Ukraine, a lot of Russia's drone technology came from Iran. So it has a large amount of capability there. I think if the regime in Iran feels that it's in a fight for its life, then it won't hold back. In some senses, I think there were limitations put on the responses that came last June, the attack on Qatar. There was a suggestion that there had been prior warning, people had been moved out of the base. Iran had to be seen to retaliate, but in actual fact, it wasn't particularly grave, and those missiles were intercepted. We could be in a very different ball game right now, and it's just a few hours since we were woken up in the morning with the first alert that Israel, together with the US, had struck Iran already. We've seen 4 waves of strikes from Iran.
One thing that's different from this, Ian, is that it's seemed to be rapidly developing throughout the region. We definitely want to go to Steve Ganyard again, who can talk to us a little bit about the military assets in Bahrain. And as we mentioned earlier in talking with Martha, the U.S. Embassy there telling people to shelter in place because of what they call as an imminent strike that's happening.
Yeah, Michelle, we're actually seeing a video of what appears to be an Iranian strike on the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet headquarters, or at least in the entity. There's also a maritime operation, Gulf Cooperation Council coordination. There's other reports of bases, U.S. bases, Qatar, Kuwait, Jordan, UAE. There's reports of incoming coming Abu Dhabi. So all of these feared retaliatory strikes seem to be come to pass. Now, how many of them there will be, how accurate they'll be, how long the Iranians will conduct these strikes is an open question. These were obviously pre-planned retaliatory strikes. All of these areas are well known to the Iranians. They're airfields and ports that the U.S. Navy has used for years, and so they could just pre-register. They would know where to fire
C'est bon.
24-hour warning listen.
I have a friend, former CIA officer, who was at the White House this morning talking to his friends, and he says that a decision has been made to attack Iran on Monday or Tuesday.
我操！这个，哦！我靠！哦！
He said, he will start a war. I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars. Under Trump, we will have no more wars, no more disruptions, and we will have prosperity and peace for all. He said, he will start a war. I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars. Under Trump, we will have no more wars, no more disruptions, and we will have prosperity and peace for all. He said, he will start a war. I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars. Under Trump, we will have no more wars, no more disruptions, and we will have prosperity.
Every light us out already got here one non-stop fire road.
Got another brother, we building we. OG right there. Go subscribe to his channel.
Greatgrandsun in the building. We building to last forever, reaching for the future. No matter the weather, we strong. We focus, get into the bag. Moving small with silence, never been the ones to brag. Haters see and hear the name, we rebuilding, we everlasting in the game. Stay far away from lanes. Praise the rules and Prince and Paul the name. We are not the same. Praise the rules and Prince and Paul the name. We are not the same. Are not the same. And we are not the same. Praise the rules and Prince and Paul the name. We are not the same.